Yeah, it would be nice.
Alex, sorry, you're muted.
Always, there's always one, isn't there? Let's just wait for the room to fill up a bit. I see we've got a few people already. I am unfortunately stuck on mobile because Zoom. I think a one-word answer suffices. Zoom. All right, so we'll give it until about 10:05. Good to see quite a few familiar names and quite a few new names. Nice. So all of our non-Jina people who are here, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, go for it. We'd love to know more about you, where you're from, what you're trying to build with Jina, your mother's maiden name, your social security number, all of these things. They'd be lovely. And sorry for any background noise here. I'll be moving rooms in a little bit, but right now we're kind of stuck with it. Of course, if you have any Q&A, you can put them in the Q&A section. When you are on the chat section, be sure to change the little drop down from hosts and participants to everyone. So everyone can see your message and everyone can say hi and see your social security number and mother's maiden name. Oh, hey, good to see you here, Philip. And as always, I shall attempt to butcher everyone else's name. Luckily, I don't have to say the Jina people, but hey, Dominic, good to see you here. Giancarlo, yeah, long time no see, buddy. Mohammed, Ron, yep, Sung Soo and Yaniv, good to see you all here. Thanks for rocking up. Florian, you'll want to tag everyone in the chat, not just hosts and participants. And that goes for everyone. Unless you have a particularly flattering comment about my beard or something you don't want to share with anyone else. But yeah, keep it public. Public adoration and flattery is what I'm after. What we're all after here at Jina. All right, I think this room is filled up. We can get this show on the road. So I'm Alex Curtin-Griffiths, Jina's Developer Relations Lead. It's great to see you all here for our version 3 launch. It's been a long time in the making, and we're sure you're going to like the event today. So first up, Xiao, our founder and CEO, is going to give a company introduction, followed by Max, one of our chief engineers, who will be giving an introduction to the Jina ecosystem, which, man, that has changed substantially since version 2. Joan, one of our other engineers, is going to talk about the transition from Jina 2 to 3. And finally, we're going to wrap up with Han having a look back at how far we've come and celebrating Jina's 2-year anniversary. So, yes, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Han. And Han, the stage is yours.
Okay, so I saw the first session was Max. But okay, so anyway, so I just so welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining this session. So as you probably know that we just released 3.0 last week, and so there are a lot of improvements, and most so there are some improvement on the robustness and also the scalability perspective, but most importantly, with 3.0, you will see Jinaa really works as an ecosystem. Right? So if you go to our README, check out the demos, so you see that Jinaa is not only just a framework, but it is actually play very nicely with other part of our ecosystem, such as a hub, such as a Docker array, in a very smooth way, right? So Joan led the effort of 3.0 development, and he will talk about the technical details, what is going on behind that, and what are the highlights there later in the later session, right? So Jinaa AI has been founded for 2 years, and over the last 2 years, we have been building the neural search ecosystem end-to-end, right? So unlike other companies that focus more on the one particular part, such as the database or computation part, Jinaa AI is unique in the sense that from the very beginning, we aim to work end-to-end, right? So we aim to provide a full stack developer experience for you, right? So that's why you see not only as a framework, it covers from pre-processing to post-processing, from computation to ranking to indexing, but also like we have other projects such as fine-tuner, which focus more on the embedding tuning. We have Docker array, which provides the common infrastructure, the common data structure that every neural search application can be built on. We have a hub, which is a marketplace that contains reusable building blocks for people to quickly build up their pipelines, right? So all these efforts comes to today, and you will see how they are nicely integrated into Jinaa 3.0, right? And so without further ado, so I will hand over the stage to Max, and so let he introduce about our ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Then let me start. Give me a second. Let me share my screen. I hope you all can see the slides now. Thumbs up? Yes?
Yes.
I expect if not, perfect. Okay, welcome to my little guided tour through the Jinaa 3 ecosystem. Before I start with talking about the ecosystem, I want to talk a little bit about how typical solving a neural search or search problem with neural search looks like. So usually you have 4 things that you do. You tinker around with your data. At the beginning, you need to understand your data. You somehow need to put your data in a data format where you can play around with and get fast insights. You need to massage your data over the time again and again in order to get better results. And also for debugging, you repeatedly need to look into your data and need to understand what is currently happening. Then once you have understood how you want to build your search and how your algorithm works, at some point you want to productionize it. So you want to deploy it somewhere and put your front end to your back end. And once you have deployed it and you put it into production, you also need to scale. So somehow also when you build a neural search engine, you need to somehow care about deploying and scaling. Then usually searches are done in a business environment, but even if not, you have usually custom logic around the search where you have certain needs that must be addressed. Let's say you're a t-shirt shop and you want your favorite t-shirt at the very top always to be displayed. So you need some special logic around it. And ultimately, you not just want a search that somehow works and give you some random results, but you want to have a search which gives you good results. And you want to constantly improve your quality. You want to understand your quality and improve it again and work on getting it better and better. And so in Jinaa, we built the blocks to solve these four somewhat typical parts when someone builds their own neural, or when you build your own neural search engine. And these four blocks are, as Han already mentioned, we have the doc array, we have Jinaa 3, we have our hub, and we have our fine tuner. And I will now put images into your brain that helps you remember always what these four components are about. And then hopefully afterwards, you can always remember easily when you take which component and how you start your journey with Jinaa. So let's start with doc array. Doc array itself is our data structure where you can put in your data. These could be, for example, images. But you can not only put in your data, but you can also transform your data. For example, resizing, cropping, changing the RGB channel, just loading it from JPEG, so you just give it a file name and you can load it, or from other file formats. So the doc array and the document, these two components that we have, help you to easily load data, but also massage it. But this is not only true for images, but also, for example, text. Then in neural search, usually you want to match something to you have some query, which might be text or image or something else, and you want to match it to part of your data. And this is also directly included in the doc array. So for first experiments, you don't need any other tool, any other database, anything underneath to get your hands dirty with neural search. You can directly with the doc array alone understand how neural search works and play around. And as I promised already, we also have data visualization tools glued to our doc array, which you can then easily use to directly visualize your data and analyze it and understand, for example, the data distribution. But also if you use models on your data in order to get vectors, you can then understand the vector space better and understand how, what your data looks like. And beside text and images, we also support, for example, videos or audio or 3D models or any other data structure, more or less, that you can put into binary blob. And most probably that is almost all the data. So that's about doc array. Doc array itself gives you now is a toolbox which helps you to tinker around with your data. At the beginning, to understand your data, to understand neural search, but also on your journey when you build then your production system for debugging. So this is your toolbox that you always have with you in order to work with neural search. Now let's come to Jinaa 3, which internally we always refer to as Jinaa core. And so now you have somehow understood, okay, this is, I have my queries and I have my results, and on my playground, on my local machine, everything works. But now I want to somehow show this, for example, to my manager, or I want to actually deploy it to production. And then you potentially want to run it not on your local machine, but somewhere else. We mainly use Kubernetes currently for this. And we use Kubernetes for deploying and also for scaling then our components. And Kubernetes uses Docker images underneath. And somehow you need to provide the Docker images. But we don't want to give you the burden to, okay, please write your own Docker files and compile everything, but you should care only about writing your code that you really need for your search problem. So we give you an executor. An executor is more or less from your perspective, you just need to write the class where you say, okay, this is what I want to do. And the executor hides away network traffic from you, hides away Docker image building, hides away all this nasty tasks that you would need to do yourself. And you write your class, and what you get is you can directly use this class Dockerized inside Kubernetes. Then you can put multiple of these executors together inside a flow, and the flow describes your whole neural search engine, the solution for your search problem. And in the flow, you can combine multiple executors. That could be, for example, some executors might have the model that you need in order to get vectors. Some executors might be about storing the data in persistent storage. Some executors might be about adding your business logic and massaging data, or other things that you can think about. So executors in the end, you have complete freedom to put in the code that you need for your solution. And you can combine them in the flow. And the flow gives you a nice interface to deploy them on Kubernetes, but also allows you to communicate, send gRPC requests or REST requests, so you can seamlessly integrate the running Jinaa instance into either with the front end that you build or with your other backend services, and then can communicate, for example, also via gRPC with the flow. So Jinaa 3 you use when you want to productionize things. When you want to somehow build your own little neural search factory, then you use Jinaa 3. And also, once you have deployed it, for orchestrate your running system. This also helps you with orchestration. Now let's come to the hub. The hub is easiest explained by showing it to you. So this is our Jinaa hub. It's a platform where you can find executors that are open source, that are available for everyone, publicly available. And you can, for example, when you have a clip or an image, text-to-image search, you can use the clip image encoder and the clip text encoder directly from here. You don't need to implement it yourself. You also get different indexers like HLSW Postgres indexer or a simple indexer. But you also find a lot of other like Ranker and a lot of other tools which might help you PDF segmenter if you want to analyze PDFs, which is then neither a model nor a storage engine, but rather a helper tool. And in the hub, you can find them, you can search them, and also you can upload your private executors to a hub. And then they're not even people can't see it here, but you can still use the same distribution system that we have somehow for distributing the public executors also for your private ones, which no one else can see afterward than you. So the hub is, you already have seen the image just a second ago, is somehow your grocery store for executors. You see all of them and you can gather them and put them together into your flow. And now, last but not least, we have the fine-tuner component. And fine-tuning is now actually about really caring about machine learning. And you might have seen this image already. I think it's from a blog post that Han has posted 4 years ago or so, or 3 or 4 years ago. And the insight is still very true. So there are very few tech giants that deliver pre-trained models. So they train models on a huge amount of data, use a crazy amount of GPUs to do this training and also crazy amount of data. And in the end, they give us a lot of pre-trained models for free and open source them, which is cool. So you directly get machine learning models which you can use. But sadly, they usually on a concrete search problem perform rather poorly. So kind of okayish, you get okayish results, but nothing that you would actually want to put into production. So what is now needed is to use these gathered knowledge, which is in this pre-trained model, and fine-tune them or change them slightly to your domain. So it might be, for example, you take a model that is trained on images, but now your problem is fashion search or car search, and then you somehow fine-tune it to the domain of fashion with the data that you have at hand for your search. And this is what the fine-tuner somehow gives you. It allows you to use this pre-trained model, bring in your own data, and then get a fine-tuned model, which gives way better results. And in the fine-tuner, we support currently the 3 big machine learning frameworks that exist. Yeah, it's also open source. Check it out and have a look at it. So fine-tuning you use somehow to get better in search and to improve your whole search system. That pretty much wraps it up. So we have our 4 components. Dockerray is our toolbox, which we always take with us and always somehow helps us understanding data, tinkering around with data. Jinaa 3 is our factory, or is somehow used in order to build your factory to put your neural search into production. The hub is your grocery store where you can shop executors and put them into your flow. And the fine-tuner is your personal coach that makes your neural search better. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and I guess we will at the end, or if there are immediate questions, I can answer them now. And if not, then we can, if you have questions in the next minutes or next half an hour, just put them in and we answer them at the very end.
It looks like we already have a question or several.
Shoot it.
So shoot the question. That's very violent, Max. Okay. So executor is similar to .exe format of Windows, asks Sung Soo.
To what?
The exe format of Windows.
No, it had nothing to do with exe format. No. So the executor is, so from your perspective, the executor is just a class that you write, a Python class that you can write, and then you put it into, and then you can use our tooling in order to directly get Docker images out of it. And then you somehow get from the executor Docker images. But this has nothing to do with the executor of Windows. No.
All right. And a question from Yanov. I hope I'm saying your name right. While playing with the system, it was hard to understand exactly how to configure everything, especially because of the changes between versions. Is it possible to run executors from the hub in debug so we can trace the issues and see what's wrong with the config?
I'm not sure if I'm the right to answer this. I think Joan can answer this better later. So when you run the executor, you can set the logging level of each executor individually, or at least also for the whole flow. And then you can get all the logs that the executor spit out. Further, yeah, for better current usage, how to use the executor, perhaps Joan can answer this.
Awesome. Well, Joan is on next, so that gives us a good little segue. Joan, do you want to join us?
Yes, so should I try to answer this before or?
Yeah, up to you.
Well, actually, I mean, it is a known issue that we know that we are developing fast and changes in the versions are painful, but we honestly believe that it is for the best. I know that a lot of people may suffer from it and may not agree, but since we are trying to build and iterate fast and build something awesome, it's a price that we are paying right now. And it's true that it is a little bit hard for debugging when a hub executor is in an image. I would suggest to the user if he can join, or he or she can join the office hours that we have set for Thursday, and we would be really happy to hear the problems and maybe find a way to ease this pain for the community.
Yeah, I also want to add some points here. So basically, if you think about the developer journey of an executor, right? So once you put something on the hub, so you already consider this is, let's say it is, to some extent, it is useful out of the box, right? So therefore, when we develop an executor, or when we debug executor, so we usually talk about, subclassing from the executor class, and then write some function, and then bound this function, decorate this function with a request. So all this development journey happens on your local, right? It's in your local development. It's probably just on your laptop, right? So once you have iterated your executor several times, right? You found out, okay, so it is kind of bug-free, and I want to share it, I want to use it in other system, and then I publish to the hub. So notice that everybody can publish. You can publish, other people can publish, and you can use other people's executor. It is completely like a free market, right? So it is true that some of the executors that we provide in the hub sometimes broken due to some reasons, and it is also true that once the executor is already available in the hub, it is not very easy to debug that. But this is also true if you think about Docker Hub, right? So you found something in the Docker image which is broken, but Docker image itself is immutable, right? So Jinaa Hub also shares the same idea. Once the executor is pushed to the hub, it is kind of immutable. Like conceptually, it is immutable to you, right? And then the only way to fix it, to find a bug and to fix it, is to push another version. And this is the same as any version management systems, from PyPy to Docker Hub, or even to your GitHub repo, right? So you have a version system in the Jinaa Hub, so to make sure that every time you found a bug there, so you can trace it, you can track it, and then after you fix it, you push a new version to it, right? So that's kind of the logic behind that. But that being said, so I already sent you a link, which talks about how to use Hub executor as a local executor, right? So we have a special function called executor.from hub, which is a class method of the executor class, and there you can kind of have this local development experience with Hub executor from the cloud, right? So there you can debug, what is going on, what is wrong with your executor there, right?
Does that answer your question, Yanu? Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Yes, I will take that as answered. That's a lot of thank yous, Yanu. Thank you to you too. All right, so yeah. Are there any questions coming in from YouTube, Sophia?
No, not yet.
Okay, great. And hello out there to everyone in YouTube land. So yeah, next up, we've got Joan. So let's re-welcome him. Welcome, Joan.
Hello. So let me share my screen, I guess. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Joan, and I am gonna talk about Jinaa 3 and the changes that came with it, and I'm gonna explain a little bit of the story of Jinaa. Jinaa is, just to remember from Max talk, is the component in our ecosystem that deals with distributing, scaling, and reasoning about neural search applications as a whole when you have played around with Docker arrays before. So first I would like to start, and I think it makes sense since we are celebrating or talking about the new release of Jinaa 3, go back in time and think about the three major releases that came along, so that I think it's important to understand where one come from to understand where we are going. So we had the first major release back in 2020, I think, and it was the first presentation of Jinaa of our neural search framework. It was laying the ground for how to build neural search applications with Jinaa, and we had many components there: flows, executor, drivers, bots, and peas. With these layers, we were trying to hide things from the user to make everything really easy to do. But then we realized that the complexity of the system was a little bit too much. And soon after, we released 2.0 with a focus on simplicity. So we exposed these three concepts that are still alive in all this ecosystem, that there's the flow, the executor, and the document array. And our motto was, learn them and nothing else, and you are good to go. So it was the focus on 2.0 was about simplifying the concepts and the abstractions and give the power back to the user. Don't hide complexity from the user, but make it simple and give the power all to the user. And then it came with the laying ground of 2.0. We could focus for 3.0 on the robustness of the system, the scalability, and to make it easy to make the journey easier to move to the cloud with your neural search applications. So to understand how we reach into Jinaa 3, we have to understand two major internal changes that I want to share here with the community. These internal changes are not directly felt. Well, one could argue that the document array new package is felt, but one of them is not felt directly from the community, but it lays the ground to offer new features and new possibilities for the framework. So we did a major change on our network architecture. We moved from depending on JMQ to based on gRPC. We moved to an architecture where we have a central entity coordinating the whole pipeline. And we moved to a way where everything is a request reply. This can have opened the door for many features and possibilities. And then the other major change is that we, instead of having document array inside Jinaa core, we put document array in their own package and a new part of the ecosystem. So the isolation is clear. Document array can focus on making life easier for data scientists and first commerce. And Jinaa can focus on being the component that distributes components that use this document array. So what are these network architecture changes? So we have to understand what was in Jinaa 2 and why could it be limiting. So before that, executors were connected to each other as a pipeline. So when you see flow as a pipeline, it was literally like this. Every executor was connecting to its own, to the next executor. So there was no central entity coordinating the communication between executors. So this might seem very good because you can have maybe less hops, but this made it a little bit, it came with a lot of problems. So there was a discoverability problem. So, and every executor was not totally isolated from the other executor. If I have, every executor should know about its neighbors. So this is a problem of isolation. And then it was hard to handle complex topologies. Sometimes one executor was living in a local machine, another one in another. So it was a mess to handle this. And then for robustness, if there is no central entity managing this, it's hard to know if a request is just being slow or it just failed and so on. So it was not clear who is responsible for managing these things. So in Jinaa 3, we did a change to solve these problems and to open new doors for features and solutions. So we make sure that the flow API, what internally we know as the gateway, is the one connecting to every executor in a request reply pattern. This makes the user feel like there is a pipeline, but the pipeline is like a star. We actually internally, we call this a star routing pattern. Then the executor can live alone. It doesn't need to know that it lives inside a flow. It can live it in its own world. It doesn't care. So it helps about modularity, isolation, and so on. Communication is based on gRPC. That is better. It has better support than JMQ. So we don't have discoverability problems. And that opens the door to having executors started in an isolated way and used by flows independently. And then this fact that the gateway connects to every executor in a request reply pattern makes it easier for the gateway to discover problems before and to not have dangling requests. So this is the resulting architecture that now you can see when you start a flow. So when you start a flow, this is a typical case where you do a flow add to describe your pipeline. So this is how it looks. So flow always starts this, and these are all the entities involved. A flow always starts a gateway, what we call a gateway. That gateway provides two things. The service layer, it makes it possible for the client to send requests via gRPC, HTTP, or WebSocket, and also has this topology information of all the executors. For the gateway, an executor is not exactly an executor, it's what we call a deployment. So a deployment is an abstraction that abstracts the complexity of the distribution and scalability of an executor. And the deployment is formed by executor and as many replicas as it one, and a head entity. The head entity is the one that receives the gateway and makes sure that the replicas are hit in a round robin fashion, or however, one of the replicas is added. And you can see here is a sneak peek of what is coming. We kind of take a similar vocabulary as Kubernetes because we are also want to make it easy for community to understand and to see how you can scale all these components with Kubernetes. So these architecture changes, you might say, you just told me I don't care. Why do you explain? Because it opened the door for many new features that came with Jinaa 3. So actually, most of the time was spent on doing these changes and then enjoying the benefits of it by implementing features that we think that the community can enjoy. So for instance, with the gRPC, we can now use coroutines in an executor. So you can run code in your executor without blocking the event loop. We can use external executors from a sandbox. So you don't need to start or stop your executor. The Jina hub infrastructure can do it for you. Why? Because an executor can live independently. So one component can start an executor and a flow can benefit from it. Since 0MQ was fixing the connection for us before, now with the gateway as a central system, we can have a polling per endpoint. So you can decide when you have shards, what to send to at which time. And then it also eased a lot the cloud deployment, which we will speak about later. So coroutines in executor, what does it mean? This means that this pattern is possible right now. So I can write an executor normally, and now all the methods that are decorated with requests that will bind to an endpoint can be declared as a coroutine and do some await there. And Jinaa will make sure that this doesn't block your event loop. So you can send a lot. This is very useful, for instance, to connect to external services, to external APIs that provide external async clients and so on. So this opens the door for a lot of patterns in Jinaa flow. Then also the sandbox executor. What does it mean? That you can do this, like you can run a code like this and start a flow like this, and this Jinaa Hub plus sandbox is telling you that, oh, you don't care to have enough space or enough CPU or enough GPU to run these clip image encoders. Hub infrastructure will run it for you and will make sure that the messages arrive to that executor and you enjoy the embedding power of this image. And what it makes also is that you can try out your executors in the hub without actually the burden of downloading the image and so on, which can be sometimes a little bit heavy. What does it mean, this polling per endpoint? For instance, before we had a pattern that it was common that we needed an index flow and a search flow. And at index time, normally, if you have an indexer with 3 shards, you want to index to only one of the shards because that's the point of sharding. But at search time, you want to hit all the shards, so to collect every potential result. Before, you needed to have 2 flows to cover for this pattern because the connectivity was fixed between all the components. Right now, what you can say is, at index time, please send to any of the shards, and at search time, send to all of them. And for the rest of the endpoints, use all. But most of the time, a lot of flows just have index and search. And also, we worked a lot on easing the way, so easing the journey from developing something locally, exposing it locally, feel the value of your solution, to the cloud. So we expect this is a typical journey where you develop a flow locally, you feel the power of it, you validate what you think and how it works. Then the next step could be to dump into a Docker Compose file so that you can keep so everything that you did locally, keep it versioned, well structured in Docker images. And this is something that you can share with your colleagues very easily. And you can sell the idea to your boss, for instance, and it's easily reproducible. And then the next step would be, okay, I want to have it into Kubernetes. So we also make this mapping from a local flow into a Kubernetes set of deployments so that you can use your favorite orchestrator. This was possible partially because we, in the core, we have a better separation of concerns of what part of the code deals with orchestration, because Jinaa is about orchestrating and serving, which part of the code deals with orchestrating your executors, and which part of the code is about serving solutions and is about the things that live in any system and then actually process document arrays. So this is more or less what the layers that we have right now. So you have a flow is the orchestration kind of layer. And for doing orchestration, you can use directly the flow when you run locally, when you start a flow as a Python object or from YAML, and you start it and stop it. Or you can say, no, flow, delegate the orchestration job to Kubernetes or potentially others. So right now we don't have a way we don't have a method to write configuration for others orchestrators, but I'm sure if the community asks, it would be easy to map everything into other orchestrators that can become popular. And the serving part, that is the serving part that deals with executors from the hub that work on Docker arrays, are the ones that are agnostic to who is orchestrating them, because they behave exactly in the same way. And this separation of concerns and layers is a key factor for Jinaa and its future. And then the other biggest change that was left to comment is the document array. So in Jinaa 3, we decided to move document array outside of Jinaa so that the community can enjoy its benefits, all the value of this unstructured data structure, without the burden of knowing every concept in Jinaa core. Maybe a lot of people don't know about scalability, don't care right at some point, or they will care later. So we separated this so that they can use it. And this also has a very big benefit, because in the past, all the document arrays and documents were a memory view on a protobuf object. So every action that you were doing on a document was internally mapped into was affecting a protobuf object. And protobufs are good for reading and serializing, but not to work with them. And by moving it to a document array package, this turned into a real Python object. And what we do now is just serialize and deserialize when this is needed, not at every step. And these are the highlights and the big changes that came with Jinaa 3. So I hope that you all guys enjoy it. And thank you for your attention, and feel free to ask any questions now or later or whatever.
Perfect. Thank you, Joanne. And I believe Yanov has another question that Han wants to answer. So in the deployment, all executors are on the same machine or can be on different machines? And Han?
Yes, I already answered that in the chat box. So in the deployment, the executor can come from different machines, right? So you can even have a deployment that is a mixture of your local executor that running on your laptop and a remote executor that running running remotely on some either by a sandbox or on some AWS machine. So. And as I write in the chat box, so the executor can live live on the local, on the remote, on the local Docker container, on the remote Docker container, or even remote sandbox, right? And then the flow, as a flow, you can connect any executor from those places, and then it will just orchestrate them together.
Great. Thanks, Han. All right. So those are big thanks to Joanne and Max for their speaking. I think Han is going to give the last talk of the day.
So there is another question from the YouTube. Can we execute query on meta tags and docs in Docker array? Can we provide example link so I can execute it? Right. So I am guessing the question here is about kind of like a filter language or query language, like in Elasticsearch, right? So right now we are working on that, so right now it's not available. It's not available. So there is no such query language that allows you to directly query or selecting the document by their tags, by the value of the tags. So you can write something natively in Python, but we, before designing or proposing another DSL to this Docker array, so we want to look at the industry standard and see what we can do here, right? So this is also connect to the next presentations that I'm going to make. Introducing some 3 cool features about in our recent update in the Jinaa AI ecosystem. Right. So I just changed my topic a little bit because I already talked about the company, overall the company story in the beginning. So, and because of the recent release on the Jinaa 3.0, I want to share 3 cool features that you probably never heard of, right? So I'll never haven't used. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is so there are 3 features I want to show to you. So the first is, let me switch the okay, so I think it's probably easier just to use just use laptop. Okay, so the first thing, so the first thing I want to show you is the document array.push and pull, right? So this is a new feature that we released about I think 2 months ago. But it's a very, very important feature that allows people to share document array like a Dropbox, right? So basically, you can just imagine that we have implemented a Dropbox, but this Dropbox is specifically designed for storing and retrieving docker array across the web, right? So basically, to show you an example, right? So let's look at this example where I just pull the document array. So let's look at an example where I first build some random docker array. Right? So I can start with da equals document array.empty, and then I generate 100 documents into the document array, right? And then here I can give the file name. I can say, okay, so this is my my test DA, right? And then if I do that, I run the code, and then it is pushed, right? It is pushed to my test DA. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So it is pushed to the cloud. And now if you have laptop, right, on your hand, you can right now do da.pull, right? So you can right now do something like this. And then print it, right? So look at this, right? Right. So you can just copy the paste, or you can write this in your on your laptop in your Python, and then you should be able to download this document array very easily, right? So as you can see, it's very convenient way to share an executor. As I'm talking, you can already enjoy what I'm having here as a document array, right? So this is also kind of like a symbol that apart from the open source offering, open source products that we have, as a company, right? So the company Jinaa AI, the company itself, has a very advanced and stable cloud infrastructure that can offer this the storage features, right? So you can basically imagine that we are building a cloud infrastructure that one part of the infrastructure is about storing document array, right? And who knows, maybe in the future we will expand the storage layer to cover more data type, right, and more use cases. right? But as you can see here, this is already a very useful feature that allows people to quickly share in document array. And in fact, if you go to our GitHub README, right? If you go to our GitHub, and then you can already see that we are using the document array.pool here to in our README to simplify the downloading procedure, where otherwise you have to go to the website, download the zip file and unzip it, and then load the image by yourself, right? So with document array.pool, you can just write this demo minus left DA, and then it just downloads and then put this into a document array automatically. Right. So this is the first feature I want to share to you. The second feature is a sandbox, right? So right now the sandbox is already super powerful. So let me just show you how do I create a sandbox. The sandbox is basically a microservice that completely for free, right? So you can imagine you are using AWS, and you have to open an EC2 instance and then push your Jina executor there, and then start this EC2, or set up the port, set up the SSH, log into the SSH and do all this kind of things, right? The sandbox is basically a one-liner that do everything for you and expose your executor as a microservice, as a ready-to-use microservice to you, right? So to look at that, so let's first create an executor, right? So you don't have to, you can start by subclassing all these things, but here I'm just going to use I'm just going to use Jinaa, which is a command line interface. So in this case, okay, so it doesn't matter, so I will just call it my executor 39, and which folder, it doesn't matter, so I will just continue. Advanced config, I don't need. Okay, so that's it, right? So that's the executor. That's the kind of a template of executor that we have, right? So if we go to, okay, so, but what is the logic there, right? So let's go to the, let's go to the folder. Okay, so it has some dummy files. And then if we look at the executor logic, okay, so it received a request, and then kind of like a pass, do nothing. So how about, okay, so if I receive some request, I select the text, I select the first document, and then set this text to, this is from Jina 2 to 3 events, right? Okay, so that's it, right? So that's a very simple executor which do some pre-processing or encoding by assigning the docs into this by assigning a text into the docs, right? And now we can push it, right? So let's push it to Jinaa Hub, right? And so now you can see the cloud building, all this kind of stuff, and that means the cloud infrastructure that I was talking about also support this kind of virtualization, right? So all these things happens not on your local. It doesn't matter whether you have Docker installed on your local. It is completely irrelevant. So all this, building this procedure, it actually happens on the cloud, right? Okay, so now it is done. So you get this very nice, kind of command line interface thanks to Reach. And so it says that, okay, so you first of all, you can go to this website and check what you have uploaded there, right? So this is what you upload. My executor is 39, right? So it is already available here. Okay, so now you can use it, right? So you can use it also. I will just use this, this. Okay, so let's go now because I never tried this feature. Try the Google Colab features before, so I guess it will probably break. So let's reuse it from here, right? So let's create a new flow, right? Let's create a new flow and write something up. So I guess there are some other commands here. I just need to delete here. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I create a flow and add this sandbox. Jinaa hub, the special schema Jinaa hub plus sandbox / my executor 39, right? And then I can what I can do is, okay, so I will just write like this. Then what I can do is I can post something to that and see what it gets back to me, right? So what it returns to me, right? So I can send an empty document to that. I can send an empty document to that, and then I print the document, return document is text, right? Because it always return a document array, right? So that's why you have the plural of the text. Okay, so let's run this code, not in PyCharm, but on the command line, because the PyCharm terminal works a little bit different. So let's write PyToy 20, I think it's 26. Yes, 26. Right. Okay, so as you can see here is directly deploying this myExecutor 39. It asks the cloud. It asks the Jinaa cloud to deploy the microservice for you, right? And the deployment happens on the cloud, right? It's not related. So I can totally delete, this myExecutor 39, right? So I have to be careful, right? So right, I can delete. Okay, so let's make sure I'm not deleting, some serious stuff, right? Okay. So I can completely delete. That's irrelevant. So and because, as I said, the sandbox survives, the leaves, and survive on the cloud. It's not about your local, but you can concatenate with your local executor, right? So let's say, okay, so now I have another executor class, local executor, right? A subclass from the executor, and I do some logic here, right? So let's write something here, executor, and what I'm doing here is I request the full docs document. So I'll skip this part, and then docs 0 the text. I will append local grading, right, to the text. Okay, so now I concat this. Let's remove this part. Let's close this part. So now let's add this local executor, afterward, right? So you have a sandbox executor, you have a local executor, and remember that we have delete our local source code of the sandbox. So this sandbox must survive and lives in the on remote, right? So let's run this code again and see what happens. Right. Yeah, you see that now it is faster. So first of all, there are two insights that you probably observe, right? Two observations that you probably see, right? So first of all, this time it is faster. Why it is that? Because last time we already deployed the sandbox, right? 2 minutes ago. So it's kind of reusing the sandbox, this microservice again, because now people are querying this again, right? So it says that, okay, a sandbox already exists, we're using it, right? And this is the first observation. The second observation is that, so you can see that this is something that returns from remote, right? So this is from Jinaa to 2.3 event, and this local grading is something that we append from local. So that means, to answer the question from Yaniv, right? A flow can combine an executor from anywhere, whether it is remote or local, or remote plus local, or remote in Docker, or remote sandbox, right? So here it's just one example to show you, the sandbox is very powerful, and right now it is for free, right? So why not use that? It is for free, right? It's a very powerful microservice deployment, this hosted microservices, right, for free. So you can use that and play with that. I'm very excited to see, what you can achieve, right? I think it's very helpful for people to quickly build up something and want to test it in the cloud native settings, and want to show, have a temporary session of the flow, right? So this is a very, very useful feature. And I'm super excited because considering that if you don't do this, if you open AWS EC2 machine, try to install Jina, pip install, wrap into a Docker image, all these kind of things, right? Compared to, you spend half day on setting up all this deployment. Sandbox is just, it's just so easy for you to work with executor and also flow. Right. Okay, so this is the second feature, and the last feature I won't spend too much time, but the the last feature is about the document array persistence, right? This is so for people who usually play with document array, so you know that document array actually lives inside the memory, right? So if you create a document array, so let's say I create a document array dot empty, I create 100,000 document, right? And so this actually creates, right now it is empty, so it is so it doesn't take too much time, and also it doesn't take too much space on your local machine. But what if this 100,000 or even 1 million documents has a lot of embeddings, a lot of images, and then your memory cannot really hold it, right? So what you can do here is instead of using the memory backend, you can specify the storage to SQLite. And we are also adding other storage, but let's look at the SQLite storage, right? So if you have something like this, right? So the backend is actually, the storage. So here, if you do the summary, you can see there's some extra information here. And talking about the document array now actually lives inside SQLite instead of live inside your memory, right? And then the beautiful part of this thing is that all the APIs that you have, right? So look at this, all this API that you have works out of the box, regardless whether the backend is storage SQLite or the storage memory, right? We are going to support more storage backend, not only SQLite, but of course also key value database, such as Redis, such as Memcache, but also including vector database backend, right, to enable fast match and search vector search functions, right? I think the beautiful part is that once you master the document array API, you can forget about the storage backend underneath, right? Whether it is in memory or it is in SQLite or in Redis, you enjoy this. You speak the same language. You speak the same API, without worrying about there are too many things. You cannot load it into memory. Right? And then sometimes you can also enjoy the fast retrieval functionalities delivered by these database backend, right? So for example, in the SQLite, you can use this SQL query language, right, to select the task, which is basically one answers questions from the YouTube audience, right? And let's say if we integrate a vector database backend, so then retrieving the nearest neighbor by the embeddings, this could be also optimized, right? The speed is much faster than computing the embedding or cosine distance exhaustively in memory, right? So those are the benefits of using storage. Basically, if you switch to a storage backend, whether it is a database or vector database or document store, such as Elastic, right? Elasticsearch, right? So you're not only solving the memory problem, but you can also enjoy the database feature that provided by those backend. In the meanwhile, switching from the in-memory document array to on-disk document array is so simple that you just need to change the first line, right? You just need to change the initialization function, and that's it, right? Okay, so that's basically summarizes 3 functions, 3 features. I personally use them every day, right? I hope you do as well. And I think those are very exciting features, but also give you a sneak peek on what is Jina AI, is about, right? Besides open source offering, besides all those cool open source projects, we actually did a lot of things, and our ambitions is super high, right? Super huge, and I hope you stay with us and to see us, work with more exciting stuff and pushing new research to the next milestone. Right? And thank you all.
All right, and we have got another question, this time from anonymous attendee. It's quite the name. Is there a plan to have enterprise accounts for the hub?
Sorry?
Is there a plan to have enterprise accounts for the hub?
Yeah, so I think first of all, there need a definition about the enterprise of the hub. So I remember in the PyPy, the recent PyPy, this community. So basically, the Python package community, they define the enterprise version as, first of all, have the namespace, right? So for each company, they can have their own namespace and manage their Python package inside that namespace. I think this is definitely makes sense, right? And then we will have this version, but for free. So in the community version, we will also provide this kind of namespace feature. So about offering the hub system itself as a commercial product. So this is also, this could be possible, but right now it is not in the plan. Right.
Okay, thank you, Han. All right, Anonymous, was your question answered? If so, leave a message in the chat. I'm guessing no questions from YouTube right now. So yeah, the other big thing, of course, is, today is the 23rd. So in a way, we go from 2 to 3, assuming you're using a decimal calendar. And I guess more than 50% of you are. And yeah, the other thing is that it's Gina's 2nd birthday. So yes. So if everybody could hop onto the chat and just leave your birthday messages, remember to tag everyone like happy birthday, Gina, or you can be more creative than that. Then we'd love you to do that. We can capture a screenshot, we can frame it, we can gaze at it, we can feel happy. It doesn't take much for us to feel happy. Great. Oh, whoa. We are getting more questions in the chat. So yeah, let's just blast through those now, shall we? And whoever wants to answer can just go ahead and answer. So does PQLite on the hub allow you to do the embedding similarity and also tags filtering?
Yes. I think we need some time to upgrade to 3.0. I don't know if it is already updated, but in the meanwhile, you can also use PQLite as a backend for for the document array. Right? So for the storage backend, you can. So I just show you can write the SQLite, but you can also write PQLite there. So this will enable the fast retrieval on the embeddings. Yeah. So that's the answer.
Yeah, I just upgraded the fashion search example yesterday. So yeah. I'll share the link now. I haven't merged it to master yet, but give me a sec. We've got the other questions.
So is there a reason of a time limit on the sandbox in case of no traffic for 15 minutes? I think this is for, we don't want to burn money for nothing. Right? So that's kind of a very practical reason. Right? So if you remember how many, just let me ask you, remember how many times you start a GPU machine but forgot to turn it off, right, on AWS, and then it costs a lot of money, right? And now if we don't do that such thing, then it will cost us a lot of money, right? Because it's a free service, you can deploy basically anything, any executor, sandbox executor, and then we basically carry the cost that running those executor, and that's why we want to keep it short-lived. But you know, if you want your executor to be to live longer, there is only one way to do that. Your executor keeps receiving traffic from time to time, right? Then this 15 minutes that doesn't make sense to you, right? So it will keeps make it keep adding time for this executor. On the other hand, you also want to see the sandbox as a longer serverless microservice, right? Kind of like a serverless microservice. It's kind of a one-time thing, but you want to have a longer time lifetime for that. So that's kind of like two design thinking why we have this 15 minutes for each sandbox, right? And then the next one is how does Jina support stateful executors, and can you use Kubernetes volume with executors? I think Joan is best person to answer this question.
Yeah. So stateful executors is something that we want to support better, but definitely. So any Jina executor is built into an image, and by Kubernetes run inside a pod. So we give you the kind of the basic configuration. You can add volumes as you wish. Once you understand how your executor works, you can map and use any configuration of Kubernetes, and this will be used by the executor inside. So yeah, so we are not fixed to this because we know that the patterns that people can use in the community for Kubernetes can vary so much that we are giving the minimal configuration that will get you started, but also the freedom for you to adapt to your own needs.
Yeah, so the next question is about, where is it? Sandbox executor flow, do I need credentials? Yeah, the best part is you don't need credentials, depending on how you see it, right? So, so basically, right now for document read out, push and pull, and also for sandbox, you don't need credential for both of them. So that means the things that you share via document read, if they know the name of if they know the token, we call it token. This is basically the name that you put when you do the document read or push, right? If they know the token, they can download it, right? So it's basically like you upload something to the internet and allow everybody, and then there is a kind of like a static link or permanent link that allows people to download it, right? And so there is no credential needed, but people have to guess the name. You have to share the token name to the other people. And for sandbox also, it is not with any authentication or credentials. That means the sandbox that you shared can be enjoyed by other people, right? If you tell them about your executor's name, right? By default, they are not really visible from the Jinaa Hub page. So people, so as a developer of the executor, you push it, you trigger the sandbox, and you can use it, right? You can also share the sandbox name to other people, and then other people can use it. But that also means, right? So if you look at our Jinaa Hub page, right? So on the Hub, there are a lot of executors that are very, very popular, right? So for example, the Hugging Face Transformers, which is a BERT model, is popular. So you can imagine if we start a sandbox on that, and people will probably use that, and then this lifetime could go forever because every people will use that, right? And so in this case, I think it's definitely something that we can say is a good feature because it eases people to reuse an executor because they share the same common lifetime of an executor. And you also enjoy those popular executor which spawned by other people, right? Some popular sandbox which is spawned by other people, and then you can directly use that, right? Without waiting for the spawning, right? And in the future, we will add authentication, but not as a required feature. All right, so it's kind of like on top of that, you have kind of like an enterprise namespace where you have authentication and the executor that the sandbox executor that available on the hub is only available to those people who have the correct credentials, right? But this is a beyond the community. No, this is a beyond the the public free sharing executors. So we will keep both on the page, right? So that means even if we offer the authentication method, all these kind of things, it is kind of like an optional thing, right? If you want to use that, you can use that. If you don't want to, you don't want authentication, then it is fine.
All right.
All right. So I think that's answer all the questions. Yeah.
All right, and thank you everyone for the birthday wishes. We've got the big balloon here that part of me really wants to pop it to celebrate the demise of version 2, but I have a feeling some of you are just lurking in the background, not really listening. And if you hear an explosion, you're going to freak out. So I'm not going to do that, not right now. All right, oh, Sefi says, wanting to celebrate our 4th birthday. Wow. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, you'll have to stick around with us for a while. This is only our 2nd birthday.
Yeah, Sefi was like, 3rd one won't be awesome, so let's keep it. Let's go to the 4th.
Exactly. Just skip all those version numbers. We'll go straight to Jina XP.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess it's time to wrap things up. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Just a few other things to say. We've got our first ever office hours tomorrow. We had so many great questions here. So if you have more questions, if you want to talk about your use case, just even have a drink with us, join us at 5 p.m. CET tomorrow. Details are on our meetup group. Just Google Jina Meetup. And I think Sophia will share the link in the chat now. If 5 p.m. sucks for you and you are in a different time zone, we are looking at other office hours too. So yeah, ping us if that's the case. We'd love to hear from you. We are also looking at restarting our Jina and Tonic offline event soon, where you can get together with us once again, have a drink, maybe learn how to build a meme search engine or a fashion search engine, ask you questions, all of that stuff. And yeah, just in the chat, leave a quick note about what you liked about this session. It'll help us do better sessions in the future. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. It was great to see you all, great to see the new faces, the returning faces. And yeah, we'll just keep things going for a few more minutes so people can type final stuff in the chat. And then we will wrap it up. I feel like we should have some elevator music or something. So if Joan, are you good at humming?
Oh, I just noticed that you are sitting in Joan's spot, like, right?
Yes, that's right. We're practically next to each other. Hang on.
I just realized that. Yeah.
So yeah, we're both here.
Okay, cool.